If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. Vinyl is an American period drama television series created by Mick Jagger, Martin Scorsese, Rich Cohen and Terence Winter. The series stars Bobby Cannavale as Richie Finestra, a record executive in the 1970s. It premiered on HBO on February 14, 2016 and concluded on April 17, 2016. From the teleplay by Winter and George Mastras, the story by Cohen, Jagger, Scorsese and Winter, the pilot episode was directed by Scorsese. The first season consisted of 10 episodes. Scorsese had hoped to direct further episodes of the series. Winter left his position as showrunner at the end of the first season due to creative differences, leaving the position to Scott Z. Burns. HBO announced the renewal of Vinyl for a second season on February 18, 2016, soon after the pilot episode premiered. However, on June 22, 2016, HBO reversed that decision and cancelled the series outright. HBO head of programming, Casey Bloys, said of the decision, "It just didn't land. With limited resources, we didn't think that retooling was worth the producer's time if it would only move the needle a little bit." In October of 2018, Scorsese admitted to being heartbroken over the cancellation, describing the decision as tragic, while also saying that, in his opinion, the series would have had a better chance of succeeding if he had been more hands-on with the involvement and directed all of the episodes. The show is about the music scene in the 1970s New York, which is still awash with sex and drugs, but rock and roll is giving way to a new era of punk, disco and hip-hop. Desperately trying to navigate the changing landscape is American Century Records founder and president Richie Finestra, whose passion for music and discovering talent has gone by the wayside. With his American Century Records on the verge of being sold, a life-altering event rekindles Finestra's professional fire, but it may leave his personal life in ruins. The music for Vinyl was released by Atlantic Records and Warner Brothers Records. The first soundtrack album for the series, titled Vinyl, music from the HBO original series, Volume 1, was released on February 12, 2016, 2 days before the show's premiere date. 3 months prior, the Icelandic rock band Kalo released their song No Good on November 20, 2015, which was later featured in the second trailer for Vinyl, as well as on the show's Volume 1 and Volume 1.6 soundtrack and EP respectively. After the release of Volume 1, Atlantic and Warner Brothers began featuring EPs for Episode 2 to Episode 9. Each one was made public on iTunes every week before the premiere of each episode, each featuring 5 songs. All the songs featured on Volume 1, the EP and the Vinyl, the Essentials Best of Season 1, all consist of mixed songs recorded from the period between the 1950s and 1970s. Covers of songs by contemporary artists such as The Arcs, Julian Casablancas, Trey Songz, Chris Cornell, Andrew W.K., and original songs written for the show to fit with the style of the period by artists such as Ty Taylor's The World Is Yours, Royal Blood's Where Are You Now, and Alex Newell's and DJ Cassidy's The Kill the Lights. Aside from the soundtrack music, the majority of the music featured in Vinyl consists of many genres, including rock, blues, pop, country, jazz, soul, funk, R&B, reggae, punk, disco, and hip-hop. Some interesting trivia notes. Mick Jagger proposed the idea for what eventually became the series to Martin Scorsese back in the mid-1990s. Along with James Jagger, the band Beach Fossils are featured as the Nasty Bits. Ray Romano landed the part of Zach because Martin Scorsese liked his audition tape, even though Scorsese had never heard of Romano before then or knew about his hit TV show Everybody Loves Raymond. Romano went on to appear in Scorsese's film The Irishman in 2019. When asked about her full nude scene in the show, Olivia Wilde said she isn't shy when it comes to nude scenes. She just stated that she has no issue taking off all her clothes in front of cast and crew. Bobby Cannavale was offered the role of Richie Finestra back in 2012 while doing a season arc for Boardwalk Empire, so he had years to prepare for it. In order for the show to maintain its period authenticity, the nude scenes required actresses to have pubic hair, because in the 1970s shaving pubic hair had not been a common practice. Unfortunately, when the series was filmed, no actresses could be found with unshaven pubic hair because fashion standards had changed. Therefore, the actresses were filmed using merkins, which are pubic region wigs. It was reported that whilst filming the scene in which his character dies, Andrew Dice Clay continuously ad-libbed a line regarding his brother, previously referred to as the man his wife left him for, as a twin, thus creating an opportunity of him returning to the show in future. After a few takes, director Martin Scorsese asked him to drop the line, which he reluctantly did. Juno Temper told in an interview she spent her 25th birthday completely naked, doing a pretty epic sex scene with Mick Jagger's son for the series. She didn't realize she'd have to be totally nude for it until Martin Scorsese told her so after they'd rehearsed the scene. She said it was pretty nerve-wracking, but once they got going, it was great. Now, I remember watching the show back in 2016 and absolutely being blown away by the premise. I love the music scene of the 1970s. It was just so vibrant, creative, and just so out there as well. And this show really reflects the period perfectly. One thing I absolutely loved about the show was its detailed and authentic depiction of the 1970s music scene, capturing the era's fashion, music, and cultural atmosphere. Also, the soundtrack, featuring a mix of classic rock and original music, is absolutely wonderful. And just to be able to relive some of these most amazing songs that just don't date at all is just absolutely stunning. The show's focus on the music industry also allowed for the inclusion of iconic songs and performances, and I always liked seeing exactly which cameo per se they would have in each episode. Of course, it wasn't the real person, but I liked to see how they interpreted, like for example David Bowie or the whole of Led Zeppelin. It was just fun to sort of see these famous acts being brought back to life, as it were. The series, directed in part by the fantastic Martin Scorsese, was of course lauded for its visual striking scenes and dynamic camera work. I do, however, feel it would have been much stronger to have Scorsese throughout the whole show's run, albeit that I thought each episode was good in its own right. Look, some of the downside of the show had to be the sort of narrative pacing. It was uneven at times, and some of the episodes were very slow and dragged on, where others, of course, just rushed through their material. Also, certain characters were underdeveloped for my liking and lacked the depth. And the sprawling ensemble cast made it challenging for some of the characters to maybe receive the adequate attention that they deserved. Look, this really had an intricate plot, which involved elements, of course, of crime, the music industry, politics, and personal drama, which could be sometimes viewed as somewhat convoluted, making it difficult to engage with the very complex storyline. Look, this is one of those shows that really needed time to breathe. I love the basic premise. I loved the music, the 70s fashion, and attention to detail, and Bobby Cannavale was superb in the lead role here, as was the rest of the cast as well. From the likes of Jack Quaid to Ray Romano to the fantastic Juno Temple and the ever wonderful Olivia Wilde. I mean, on the outskirts, when you see a show that is created by Mick Jagger and directed by Martin Scorsese, well, you think you just cannot go wrong. Unfortunately, I feel Vinyl wasn't really given the full chance to sort of grow into the show it needed to become. HBO obviously just didn't feel it worked, which is unlike HBO, as they usually give shows quite a good chance to sort of take off and breathe, as it were. Now look, season 1 wasn't a blow-away by any means, and maybe because of that expectation of having Mick Jagger create the show and having likes of the Martin Scorsese directing it, in part anyway, maybe sort of led people to be let down, as they expected so much more. At its heart, I thought it was actually quite a good show, very entertaining and very well made, and I'm sorry that we never got a chance to see more of what Vinyl could have become. If you're fascinated with that period of music, or just love older music, then this is a show for you. And it's definitely a show, but was probably cut too soon into its prime. Vinyl gets an 8 out of 10.